Hello, this is Jeff Hartman, the Neptune Man, and I have NeptuneWasher.com, NeptuneDryer.com, NeptuneBearing.com. I have a number of Neptune sites, and also I offer bearings for washing machines, DuetBearing.com, EliteBearing.com. So if you need bearings for your washing machine, please visit my sites. And today I've got a little feature for you. You've probably heard of an AED, and you may have seen these devices like in the airports and maybe in schools. Are starting to show up in different public places now. And that's a good thing, because if you have a sudden cardiac arrest, you'll have a better chance of surviving it, according to the statistics. Now, this particular machine is made by Zoll, Z-O-L-L, and I do have a little bit of experience with this. I just recently placed the batteries on one, and they lasted about 5 years, and the machine will tell you when you have to change the batteries. And this particular one takes 10 batteries, and they're lithium batteries, and they're like little cells, cylinder cells. And it's a 123A battery. And the nice thing about it also, the pads last 5 years as well, and you can buy a combo pack where you get the pads and the batteries in one pack. And that's what I chose to do. That way it's just one order. And here's a step-by-step demo I was going to demonstrate to you. Now, this particular unit is set up right here, and this little tag coming out is the expiration date on the the pads, because they have a 5-year shelf life. And then what you do is you remove this lid, and then you can actually use this to put the person's shoulder on it, because they show like a head here, and that will get their shoulder up so their head can tilt back, and that will help support their top of their shoulders right here. So let's go ahead, after you've determined that a sudden cardiac arrest has occurred, then we want to turn the unit on. And we'll press the power button, which is right here on the unit. And then this is the status indicator. You either get a check or an X in here. It's a bistable display. That way it doesn't draw any power. Once they flip it one way or the other, it's supposed to stay there. That way because they want this thing to use no power when it's stationary, because you have to have the batteries when you need it the most, and they don't want to discharge the battery with an LED or whatever. LCD, you couldn't do that. So let's go ahead and turn the power on and see what happens.
Unit okay. Stay calm.
That's a good tip, stay calm. Because if you've never done this before and the need arises, it's probably going to get you some anxiety build up. So what you want to do, with this system though, you just follow the prompts. You've got pictures here, and you've got LEDs that blink to tell you which picture you're on. Plus it'll tell you on the LCD display. And so you want to open the lid, and you want to start following the visual and voice prompts.
Check responsiveness.
Okay, so we want to check responsiveness first. You want to ask the victim by shaking him and say, "Hey, are you okay?" And here we have a pictorial that says OK, and there's an LED flashing, and it says check responsiveness.
Call for help.
Okay, we're at the next one now. It says call for help. Now, if you have people standing around you, which you may, because people are kind of curious what's going on, and you have to ask someone to call 911, you want to point to somebody and say, "You call 911," and make sure they respond with eye contact, and make sure they start moving. If they don't, they might be kind of shocked or nervous, so you might want to designate somebody else. And because if you just say call 911, everybody's going to assume someone else did it, and they want to watch. So you want to point somebody out, say "You call 911," and make sure that they respond. Okay, that's very important. Or you may have to go and call 911 and then come back.
Attach defib pads to patient's bare chest.
Okay, so you gotta have a bare chest here. You're gonna have to take a shirt off. You rip it off, cut it off. There are some scissors in with the pad pack. There's a little side pouch, and you've got some scissors in there. You might have to cut your shirt off, and then you stick the pads on. Now these pads will also break away. This, I believe, it's this lower right corner. You can actually rip it, and then there's still a cable in there. But then you can actually, that way, if you have a large victim and you have to be able to spread those pads out a little more, there's a little addendum that comes with a pad, and it allows you to do that. So I want you to be aware of that. So it says on the LCD, attach electro pads.
Don't touch patient. Analyze it.
Now this is the critical point, because the AED has to determine if it has to administer a shock, And you don't want to touch the patient because you could affect the readings where it's checking for the different resistance settings, or it's trying to determine the heart pattern of what's going on. So it will determine from that information if it's going to administer a shock.
Shock advised. Don't touch patient. Press flashing shock button.
So it looks like it's going to give the shock. It's decided to shock the patient because their heart's not in the right rhythm.
Shock delivered. Start CPR.
Okay, so it shocked him. Now you got to start CPR. Now, one advantage of this particular AED is it does have a sensor on the pad, and it actually will detect how hard you're pushing, and it will tell you how if you got to speed up, slow down, push harder. See, push harder.
Good compression.
So it gives you a little bar graph here of how hard you're pushing, and also gives you a beep to let you know how fast. It's 100 beats per minute. You're supposed to be compressing 100 times. That's a lot. And if there's someone else that might be able to switch off with you, because it can be it can fatigue you really quick of giving CPR. So once you begin compressions, the AED Plus will help time your rate and advise you if you're pushing hard enough. You want to do 2 breaths for every 30 compressions. And you want to maintain an open airway. If victim is not breathing, you maintain open airway using passive airway support system or tilt. You want to do the head tilt, chin lift maneuver. Now see how they're putting the AED lid under the shoulders here, and that will help keep the head tilted back. And you can actually use that. So here it is. That's a pretty nice device. And like I said, I just replaced the batteries in one, and it was a pretty easy procedure. There's 10 batteries. I popped all the batteries out, put the new batteries in, and then there's a little button you got to hit, and then it knows you reset the batteries. And then those batteries should be good for 5 years. Now, if you have an earlier Zoll AED Plus, it says that it applies to all units with software 5.18 and lower. If you have that software 5.18 lower, you have to change your batteries every 3 years. So apparently that system must draw a little more power, and the batteries don't last as long. So they must have fixed that versions 5.19 and higher. That way, like I said, they want this thing to be idle, no power draw, but it has to test itself every once in a while. It does some internal checks on the pads, make sure the cables are good. And yep, when change batteries, you can actually put another sticker on there. That way it lets you know in 5 years or 3 years if you have an earlier Zoll AED Plus. Okay, I hope this was helpful. And again, this is Jeff, the Neptune Man. If you have any questions, or if you have any experience using the Zoll AED Plus, or maybe you know someone else that's been shocked by this thing, I would love to hear about that. Can you leave your comments below and let me know what you found out? I appreciate that. Thank you. Bye-bye.